Hey, and welcome back to another video. So if you go and ask anyone in general who knows a bit about technology, what is the world's first Android phone? They're going to tell you it's the T-Mobile G1 or the HTC Dream, which was announced in 2008 September, so September of 2008, and released on October of 2008. However, there is a phone that predates this thing from around 2006 or 2007 that was in development before this thing. And not many people know about it, and it was basically the basis or the starting point for what we know as Android today. Now, there is a bit of an argument whether the HTC Dream and this other phone were going side by side, or was the other phone dropped in favor of the HTC Dream. It's a bit unclear, but we'll be discussing that in the history portion of this video. And the phone we're talking about is this, the HTC Google Sooner Prototype. Now this phone, I recently got off eBay for pretty cheap. You can go search it on eBay. I think it's still available. It's really rare, and it is a prototype test bed for what would become Android. And in this video, we'll be getting into detail about this phone, its history, and everything else. Before jumping right in, please don't forget to hit that like button as it helps this video get on YouTube's algorithm. And also, if you like what you see, please consider hitting that subscribe button down below so you get to see more content from me. Also, don't forget to check out my social media down in the description below, which includes Instagram, Discord, and Twitter. And now, let's jump right into this video. So first, let's power this thing on and see what its boot up animation is like. So it says, it really goes fast, that screen. It says 2007, so probably when this phone was manufactured. It says Android over there. It has a blinking dash mark there. The green screen, by the way, if you can pause the video really quick, you can read what's on the green screen over there. And this kind of Knight Rider-like light. If you remember the kit car from Knight Rider, he had a light going back and forth like that in the same color as well. So that is the boot up animation on the HTC Sooner Prototype. Now for a bit of history, let's start off with the name Android. Now, where did this name Android come from? Surprisingly, this was not something that Google made up. It actually was something that Apple engineers made up in some form or another. Now hear me out, don't yell in the comment section. Andy Rubin, who would eventually be one of the main developers of Android working for Google, used to work for Apple around 1989-ish. And he was nicknamed by his co-workers with the name Android at Apple while he was working at Apple. So basically his Apple co-workers called him Mr. Android because of his love of tech and robots and all that stuff. And eventually that would become the name of the operating system that he developed many years later. Don't believe me, just Google it. You'll see what I mean. So technically it was Apple engineers, co-workers of Andy Rubin, who came up with this, well, not came up with the name of Android, but gave him the nickname Android, which should eventually become the name of the operating system. Not something that a lot of people know. Now, there's another theory as to where Android got its name from, apart from Andy Rubin's nickname. The other theory is that Andy Rubin named Android after a character from the 1990 Atari Lynx game called Gauntlet: The Third Encounter, where there is a character called Android that is almost exactly the same as the Android logo, as you can see here. And it's also called Android in that game. So Andy Rubin probably was a fan of that game. So that is probably one of the other better working theories as to where Android got its name from. So it's either Andy Rubin's nickname at Apple, or it's Gauntlet: The Third Encounter's Android character. So the HTC Google Sooner is a phone from around 2006 and 2007 and is described as being Andy Rubin's basic vision for what Android would be. Now, that all changed when the original iPhone was released in 2007 and they really had to compete in some form or another. Now, it's unclear whether this phone as a whole would have been released to the public in its form right here. We really can't really tell whether this would have been released as such. However, it definitely was the test bed to what would become Android. Maybe they would have released it in a different form, and eventually they did with that thing. But the influence of the original iPhone is still a bit debated on whether the phone would have been released in this state, or did they completely scrap this thing and completely work on a new operating system. Now, there is a chance, I read some articles online, there's a chance that this and that were both simultaneously being developed, but it wouldn't make sense because this is a way superior phone in every form or another. So obviously it's clear that this thing predates this. But they said in that article that this thing was still being used for testing purposes while this thing was being developed. So I personally believe, apart from all this vague information that's out, I personally believe that this thing was the original testbed, and it was still being used as a testbed while this was released. After, obviously, rumors came out that Apple was developing a phone, and then the iPhone was released and they had to make something that would compete. So this was the test bed. This was what the final product would be, and which would be the starting life to Android. This thing, on the other hand, is something that I read in an article again. A member of T-Mobile's team basically had got rumor of this phone. He basically found information about this phone back around 2006, 2007. I think his name was Des Smith. And he saw basically what Android could do. Eventually, he also made a statement saying that this phone was not ever meant for the public to see, and it was just for engineering purposes only. But eventually, some of them still did leak online and stuff. By the way, the black version of this phone is more rare than the white one. If you have a black one, just remember, it's way more rare than the white one, because this phone is extremely rare. So that was a bit of history about the Google Sooner Prototype, and now we can have a quick go around of the phone and talk about all the technical specifications and stuff about this thing. Up front, we have a pretty minimalist looking QWERTY keypad phone, nothing too much. There are a lot of phones like this back in the day, Nokia's, Blackberries, etc, etc. However, the keypad on this thing, the QWERTY keypad, is a really, really good keypad. It feels so nice in the hand, it clicks well, it's kind of like bubble wrap, honestly. Now, I have a subscriber and a Discord member of mine, a really active member. He actually sent the link to this phone on my Discord server, and so big thumbs up to him for letting me know this thing was on sale. He also owns one of these things because he bought one before me, and he also knows definitely what I'm talking about here. The keypad feels really nice. It's really clicky, and for some reason it feels like bubble wrap, honestly. I don't know whether he feels the same way, or anyone else who has touched one of these phones and used the keyboard here, but just let me know down in the comments if you have, because the keyboard on this thing really feels different for some reason. I don't know, I really like it, so I'm not gonna rant about that too much. Anyway, so the rest of the keyboard, the extension, you can see the navigation buttons over here, decline call, accept call. This thing depends on basically what you do. Let me go back. So this is basically somewhat like the multi button you used to find on old Android phones, like the 3 dashes. So that also has the 3 dashes. So basically, whenever you change your app, let's say you're in games, you press that, you have game settings. You go into camera, you press that, you have camera settings. So it's that multi settings thing that later Android versions had. So it's nice to see that this also had that, the multi settings that adapts to whichever app you're on. Like if you're in the browser, when you click that, it brings up history and all the other stuff. So that's really nice to see. And apart from that, we have the back button, we have the home button, and your favorites button. The auto favorites goes to the music controls over there, but you can set whichever favorite you want. The display, we'll talk about that in a bit. We have the ear speaker, and we have a notification light and a dummy light. Well, no, this is the notification light. This is the dummy, as I remember. These don't always work. Like sometimes when it's in charge, it works. This turns on and shows the charge status, but it doesn't always work. So obviously there is a lot of software issues with this thing at this age. Let's lock the keypad here. And by the way, the keypad lock on this phone is something really like what you'd find on those old Nokia. So you got to press one button and then you got to press that button, just like the Nokia menu and star. This is the multi menu plus the 0 or the @ key. Let me do that again. So activate key guard and press that. Wait till the screen comes on and press that. So that's the lock, or basically the unlock on this phone. Moving on to this side, we have our volume rockers. At the bottom, we have the mini USB Type B. I think that's what it's called. I've kind of confused myself with all the USB type. So that is definitely mini USB. I don't know if it's Type B or not. Correct me down in the comments, but that is definitely mini USB. And we have our microphone over here. We have a SD card expansion slot here. Now, this thing initially had a dummy SD card in there because it's an open slot. So to prevent dust from going in there, it has a dummy expansion card-like thing that was in there, but this does a good job of keeping the dust out, but the standard card really doesn't. As you can see, there is a gap there. On this side, we have our power button as well. At the top, we have nothing, and at the back, we have our speaker, a bump for the mini USB port. That thing kind of sticks, well, it doesn't stick out, but when you look at it from the back, it kind of looks like a bump, but it's not a bump, it's flush. You have the speaker, we have the camera, which we'll be talking about in a bit. This is definitely some form of antenna out part because it's made out of rubber, not plastic. Something to do with the antenna. And we don't have a flash on the camera as well. The camera has a different color around it as well. So that is a quick go around of the HTC Google Sooner Prototype. So the display on this thing is a pretty standard display for what you would find back in 2006 and 2007. It's a 2.4-inch display, and it has a resolution of 320 by 240 pixels. And it is a pretty decent TFT LCD display. Actually, I cannot confirm it is TFT LCD, but what I can say by looking at it, I can just say it is TFT LCD. And from obviously back in the day, the full 16 million color complement LCD displays were not available. So this is definitely TFT LCD with 256,000 colors instead of the 16 million color complement. So here's a bunch of wallpapers that are already built into this phone. As you can see here, the display is nothing too bad, nothing too great. It is just a pretty standard QWERTY display, QWERTY phone display that you would find back in 2006 and 2007. Nothing too great, nothing too horrible either. It will do the job if this phone was ever released to the public. I'm pretty sure this display would have done its job just right. Nothing too much to see there. So now I usually cover the software before covering the tech specs, but let's just get the tech specs out of the way because there's a lot to talk about software, because obviously the software is the main show on this phone, the main star of the show. So the processor on this thing is a single core Texas Instruments OMAP 850, clocked in at 200 megahertz. So Texas Instruments processor OMAP 850 with a 200 megahertz clock speed on a single core. So nothing amazing there, nothing too great. It's basically what you'd find in 2006. It has 64 megs of RAM and 64 megs of internal storage as well. And like I showed you earlier, you can expand it with a micro SD expansion slot. I tried to put my SanDisk 32 gig class 10 in there and the phone completely freaked out. So around, I think the limit is around 4 gigs. I have a 2 gig stick in there, but I think the limit is roughly around 4 gigs. So definitely not 32 gigs. The phone definitely freaked out with that and it wouldn't load properly and stuff. And that is basically all I can find about tech specs on this thing. And you can't really expect too much from a tester phone. The hardware on this phone is not the main star of the show here. The hardware is just a sideshow to what the main star is, which is the software, and we'll be talking about software coming up next. Now it's time to see basically what Android looked like in its development stage and basically what all the engineers at the time were dealing with. And there's a lot of stuff on this phone and I cannot cover all of this in one simple video because the video is going to easily top 1 hour if I try to cover all of this. However, I'll cover the main things over here. Now, the main menu is accessed by coming over here in all applications, and you can access the main menu from there. But I'll show you around the home screen first. So you can change this according to which way you like. You can add or remove something from there. This is the main scroll at the bottom here. You can navigate it using these keys here. So we have settings, applications, contacts, SMS, browser, and calendar. If If you press up, you can see signal. When you press that, you go into phone info and you get a bunch of signal related things, GPRS. The IMEI is up there as well. When you go back, you can go into battery, discharging. So battery level 6, battery scale 9, battery level raw value is 65%, battery is discharging. The battery scale, now I'm wondering what battery scale really is. Is it the battery health? I doubt it, because this battery is very old. It's probably in its 60% probably now, 60% health. So I'm not really sure what the battery scale means. But battery level out of 10 is basically 6 out of 10, and the raw value is 65%. It's discharging over there, as you can see. And when you go up again, you have the date and time. I really haven't set the date and time for this phone, but it's auto set to an older date from when this phone was probably manufactured. Let's select that, and we go into date, time zone, and all that stuff. You have access to those here. Doesn't look polished at all. It just basically looks pretty raw, and still, obviously, it's in development. It's still in development, so that's what you can expect. Now going on to the main menu by selecting all applications. So we have alarm clock, anagrams. Now anagrams had no proper logo for that thing left, so we have that over there. There's no proper logo. They've just kind of there are a lot of identical logos, as you can see. Snake on a phone, that's actually Snake, and I'll show you that in a bit. So anagrams, browser, calculator, development, we'll get into that a bit later. Contacts, camera, calendar, global time, IM, mail, MMS, controller of some sort, photos, notepad, music, multimedia messages. So the messages is split into multimedia and SMS separately. We have Quake, which doesn't really run properly. Now I've seen Quake run on this phone on some videos online, but it doesn't run on mine. Let me show you. So it's missing data files, so that's there. So I can't really show you that, but I can show you Snake, because Snake actually works. Recent calls, sample code, settings, to-do list. Kind of strange they have notepad and to-do list separately, but as you can see, we can access to-do list, make the EXCA300 video. That's basically what this phone is called, the HTC EXCA300. So you can select that as well if you want to add a to-do list. Terminal, Snake, they call it Snake on a phone. SMS, tweet, this is Twitter. Strangely, you can log in if you like, but it's definitely not going to work at this age. And I'm not going to try and put a SIM card in this thing, because this phone only supports 2G, and there's no SIM provider in the US that still runs 2G. So there's no way to get this thing working. Videos, and we have VAP browser as well. So all throughout this video up to now, you may have noticed that there's no HTC branding on this phone, despite me calling it an HTC. This thing is an HTC phone. However, the only way to show you that it's an HTC phone is when you go into settings, go into device info, it says build ID, HTC, blah, 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 blah. And there's one more place, and that is when you go into the development thing that I showed you earlier, and it says here HTC test, and under HTC test there's a bunch of stuff that probably HTC used for development. The battery status thing is also there, so you can click that and it tells you the battery status, and it has a voice recorder here as well. So it says stop record, start record, stop record, start record. So then it uses the microphone to start recording. So there's a bunch of like I put these as execute programs because they're not fully developed, and they're just in the test section for developers to use, and everything else that the developers use is also in here. There's a bunch of stuff. I don't really know what self-destruct does. I'm not gonna click it. It's probably like wipe all settings or something. I'm not sure. I'm not gonna click that. System settings is that basically the settings that I showed you earlier, except in a different format, as you can see there. There's a bunch of things that I really can't show you. There's just so much. Media scanner, log viewer, keyboard test, just a bunch of stuff that I really can't explain everything and show you. And some of this stuff also freaks out, like completely freaks out and crashes the phone. So I'm not going to click all of that. The other interesting developer stuff on this phone is the sample code. Now the sample code has a lot of cool stuff. Now under content, there's nothing really much, resources, but there's themes and like text styles and stuff. Basically the text on the phone, all the probably all the text files reside over here. App, it has like sample code for activity and alarms and stuff. Now this is like a test kind of thing. Let me show you. Where was that? Alarm controller, one-shot alarm. These are all tests, as you can see. Start repeating the alarm, stop repeating the alarm. Instrumentation, notifications, incoming message show that. So that's a somewhat of a test for an incoming notification. It vibrates the motor as well. Notify with text, it's another notification thing, as you can see. Long notification. So those are basically stuff you wouldn't see on the final model, and it's actually built into the code. But since this is a testing sample, you still can access all of these things. Graphics, you have the camera preview over here, so you can preview the camera. Canvas, there's Bart Simpson, and I'm pretty sure this is the text size thing that you can edit. So again, developer things. I don't know really how they got Bart Simpson onto that. I don't know if that's even licensed, but whatever. It probably is. And that looks like an older version of Bart Simpson. Look at his hair. It's not like, I say, I have not watched the show in a while. However, that's an older design of Bart Simpson. So yeah, 2005, 2006, that's what you can expect. Drawable, that's another shape kind of thing. It really doesn't do much. I don't know what this really means. But whatever, you get the point. It's all development related stuff. So another cool developer feature on this phone is the terminal, which you can access on any Android phone. However, you have to go into developer options and screw around a bit. This thing is out in the open. Now, the first command that I'm going to put here, let's put some easy commands. The first command probably the easiest thing that I can list off my head is, what was it? ls. And what basically ls does is it lists the directory contents. So the contents of your directory, I'm looking which button do I press. It's definitely not the select, but I think it's this. Oh yeah, there we go. So there's your directory contents, root and system, data, system, TMP, protocol, SBIN, root, dev, SD card, and stuff like that. Another cool thing that you can put in terminal is get your device architecture information. Now, as I remember, it's username dash a dash, as I remember, let me check. So I don't have a username on this thing, so I think it's uname alt dash a dash. Let's see if that works. So not found. So I definitely don't have a username listed on this phone, but it doesn't want to seem to work. Another good command is chmod change directory permissions. So chmod, let's see if that works. Node file. Do I put user after that? Uname. Let's see if that works. Nope. Yeah, so I'm a bit rusty when it comes to terminal on Android. These are just the stuff off my head. You can do much more on Android terminal than what I did. I'm just going off the top of my head, and I have not played around with terminal that much. Those are just some commands that I know. So if you have this phone or you have any Android phone, you can go mess around with terminal. However, just be careful, don't screw your phone up. Either way, that's the terminal on this device. So for other software stuff, the general stuff, the non-developer stuff, we have photos, and I've taken a bunch of sample photos, which I'll be putting in the camera section for this video. Not everything loads for some reason. Now, it could be that the memory card that I put in there is a bit old and a bit slow, or it's just the software on this phone. As you can see, some photos got a bit blurry as well, but I'll be putting bigger samples of those. We have music over here. I have not put any music files on this thing. I actually haven't plugged this thing to the computer yet, so I'm not sure how I'm going to get files off it, because I wonder where I'm going to find drivers and stuff for it. The Bluetooth doesn't seem to be working properly, and there's no way to share Bluetooth photos on this thing. Quake, doesn't work. There is something that needs, there's a PAK file that we need, so that doesn't work. Now I said I'll show you Snake earlier, so let's go play Snake. Press up to play. Press up to play. Okay, so there we go. That's your old school Snake. Now I don't know if this thing is licensed, but it doesn't seem to be a like a version of the game Snake. It seems to be like a copy of the version of the game Snake, not a licensed version. So I'm not sure how that works, but there's your old school Nokia Snake for you. Fun fact, the Snake was not only on Nokia phones. There were other phones that had Snake, so I'm pretty sure this may be licensed in some way or another. But as you can see, it works. The Snake is getting longer. Each star he eats makes him longer. And we can also crash into ourselves. Score is 5. Press up to play again. Calculator, we have a calculator over here. You can use the keypad to calculate stuff. And everything else is the general stuff. Alarm clock, camera, blah, 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 blah. We'll talk about camera in a bit. The video player is separate, so you can go into videos and play the camera recordings that you took or any videos you copied into this phone. This is the camera sample that I took earlier, and we'll be talking about that in the camera section again. As you can see, not the greatest quality, but that is what you can expect. Let's now demo the speaker by increasing the volume. As you can see, when you do that, it kind of plays for a while. That's the max volume. Let me do that again. We can just easily demo the speaker off that. Let's do that again. Let's do that again. Okay, so that's the speaker demo for you. Everything else pretty general, basic stuff in terms of software. Now let's go ahead and talk about the camera. Now, the camera on this thing is probably the most finicky thing that I've come across up to now. It crashes, it's not very stable, it has trouble loading at times, but as you can see, you can point and just take a photo. That is the interface of the camera. Very, very basic. We have the recorder, we have the library, and we have info, but info doesn't really do anything. But you have camera settings over here. You can go into settings, and looks like it got stuck there. A notification might come now, any moment. Yeah, the camera is stuck, like I said. Yeah, the camera does have a few issues. There we go. So we can wait or we can force close. Let's wait. So you don't get the resolution of this thing. You just get high image quality. You have best, medium, low. Duration 5 seconds. I don't know really what the duration means. It's not the video it's not the video duration, definitely. I don't know what the duration actually means. It's definitely not shutter times or anything like that. I'll talk about the camera tech specs in a bit. The camera is very basic. Auto upload, play click sound, that's the sound when you take the photo. Gallery, and there's a bunch of tests as well. That is the camera interface on this thing. Pretty basic stuff. So now let's take a look at the camera itself. So the camera, I've actually pasted this on top of it. The camera is a 1.3 megapixel fixed focus camera. No idea about all the aperture, the millimeter sizes, nothing like that. Nothing has been released to the public. I probably can find out this information if I copy it to a Motorola phone, which I'll do, and I'll put all the information over here if I do manage to get it out of this phone. When I copy it to my Motorola phone, it actually tells me the lens size and all that stuff, because it's able to figure that out somehow. But I'm not sure if that's actually the phone figuring it out or the image data being imprinted in the image. So I'm not sure exactly that. But even if I do, it's going to be here. If I don't and I cannot find the information, it's not going to be here. But it's a simple fixed focus 1.3 megapixel camera, and it can record video, I believe is in VGA at about 20 FPS, but I could be wrong. I was just looking at the video from the display. Once I copy it to my computer, then I can tell you exactly what the resolution and frames per second is, and I'll put it over here as usual. But the camera is very, very basic. So now let's roll some camera samples on this phone, and starting with some basic photo samples, and then followed by a video sample as well. Now we can move on to talk about the battery and the battery performance. Now, obviously, you should expect this phone with its age to obviously not be as good as it would have been back in the day. Now, I said this was an unused phone, and that's true. The battery is unused, the phone is unused. However, the battery is still old, and with age it degrades. And the battery life on this phone for now is decent, but it's not great. But it could have been better when it was back in 2006, and if someone started using it back then. But the battery has definitely aged, and it's not an ideal estimate to say how the performance is now, but it will last about 5 hours of me screwing around with it roughly. That's about it. But I've not connected it to the internet or anything like that, so there's really no proper way to estimate it, and it's not fair because of its age. Either way, the battery on this thing is a 960 milliamp hour battery, and the model of the battery is quite interesting. It says EXCA160 over there, so EXCA160, and the phone is called the EXCA300, so that's quite interesting. Now, since I cannot get proper battery numbers off this thing, I'm going to compare it to an identical phone from an identical era, 2005, so around the same time that this phone was developed, was in development to some extent. And this phone I'm going to compare it to is the Motorola Q8. Now, the Motorola Q8 was released in July of 2005 and has a 1170 milliamp hour battery, so slightly bigger. And the Q8 has a talk time of up to 5 hours and a standby time of around 240 hours. So this thing, 960 milliamp hours, maybe about 210 hours, 200 hours of standby. 200 to 210 is a good estimate of standby time, and talk time about 4.5 hours, 4 hours and 15 minutes ish, maybe something around that mark. I believe that's a good estimate. Now, the battery is also removable here. Let me lift it off like that and cover the IMEI and stuff. So HTC innovations, made in Taiwan. How to take out the SIM card. The SIM card reader is over there. If you want to put a SIM card in this thing, I don't know if it'll even work. Like I said earlier, 2G SIMs don't work anymore with basically a lot of networks don't use 2G SIMs anymore. If you really want to use 2G, you'll have to I don't know really what you'll have to do, but there's no way to use 2G in the US as far as I'm concerned. I'm pretty sure 3G is also being phased out now, but I'm pretty sure in some countries 2G is still used. Either way, that was the battery and the battery performance. So finally, we have come to the end of this video, and as you saw throughout this entire video, this is the birthplace of Android. This is where everything started. This is the world's most popular operating system at its infancy. It's nice to see where everything basically started life, not only in Android, in anything that is popular and modern. It's always nice to see where things started. I hope someday I may get my hands on an iPhone prototype to see what iPhone probably was like before it was released. And now I know it's gonna run switchboard and stuff, but who knows, there's probably a prototype version of iPhone OS before that, so that's gonna be interesting if I manage to get my hands on that. And pretty sure it's gonna be really expensive, but hopefully if I'm popular by the time and my channel has more views and I'm able to run ads, I probably will be able to afford it, and I'll definitely make a video on it for everyone to see. But this was the Android, basically the birthplace of Android, and the HTC EXCA300. The phone on its own wasn't too, flashy, surprising, amazing, nothing. It's just the software that we're most interested in. And like I said earlier, if you have one of these phones, especially the black one, hold on to it, because it's worth a lot of money. Make sure it works, take its battery out, don't keep the battery inside it. There's a chance it might leak. These phones are getting rarer and rarer by the day. You can still check eBay if that listing is still up, I'm not sure. If you want to get your hands on one, but still a very interesting phone to see where Android got its name and how it started and how it was developed and all the testing and stuff that was done in the background. Anyway, as usual, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please leave a like on this video as it helps this video get on YouTube's algorithm. Also hit that subscribe button down below and hit that bell notification button to get notified whenever I upload a new video. I'm on Instagram, Discord, and Twitter, and you can find me on those using the links down in the description below. Thumbs up, and I'll see you guys in my next video.